Hi. Have you ever wondered who holds the power in Hollywood? I have. Well, today, I have a really interesting guest. He's producer and an attorney. In fact, he's the head of global media at Sheppard Mullin. His name's Robert Darwell. Now, let me tell you a little bit about him. I'm going to look at my notes because I want to make sure I get this right. Okay? Hollywood Reporter named him the power lawyer. Variety called him dealmaker super lawyer. And Billboard lists him as a top music lawyer. So the guy's got clout, knows all sides of the business, and I've got a lot of questions for him. So welcome, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Diane.
You know, and one thing I forgot to say in your intro, which I think is incredibly important, and I think we should start there. You are producing. So you not only do all these mega legal deals, you have produced 2 amazing films, and rumor has it there might be a third one on the way.
That's right.
Your first one, The 90s Club. What inspired that?
The 90s Club. That documentary features 12 people between the ages of 90 and 99 years old. And I started it because, I always felt great respect for the well-aged and wanted to share that with an audience. Mm-hmm. I filmed it a couple years ago. There had already been much needed social justice for many groups, but I still felt that kind of seniors weren't getting that level of respect. Mm-hmm. And seems to be a built-in prejudice once you hear somebody's age, mm-hmm. and you start to think that they have some sort of diminished capacity, and whether it's mentally or physically, and that's not always the case. And even when somebody's quite older, there's a lot of richness there, a lot of wisdom, and still a tremendous amount of life. So
you proved it in that movie. I cried, I laughed. You had so many great emotions ranging through every one of those interviews.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to film it, and after every interview that I filmed, I just felt so good for the next couple of weeks, and so hopeful as well. That was another reason to do the documentary, even on a purely selfish level, mm-hmm. right? Was as a time where I'm reflecting about how do I want to spend the next 30 years or so. I thought, well, maybe these folks can give me some wisdom, and I can learn from them.
I highly recommend it to people. And that movie seemed to segue into your second foray into producing and directing a movie.
I knew toward the end of filming The 90s Club that I was enjoying the process of capturing oral history and learning from people and meeting them. I knew that I wanted to do something focusing on veterans. My father had passed away. My sister and I came across his uniform in the closet from the Korean War, his army uniform. Wow. And I realized, this was a time of his life and his service that we never really talked to him about, mm-hmm. that. And so that general concept of capturing veterans and doing something along those lines, I knew that was going to be my second film. But it was filming my final interview for the 90s Club. I interviewed Fred Gray, who went on to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor from Biden in the final year of his term. Fred Gray, still a practicing civil rights attorney who had represented Rosa Parks, Dr. Martin Luther King. And in our conversation, one of the things that he spoke about was his trouble and problems with the draft. Mm-hmm. And so that gave focus to what became Black Uniform. And I wound up interviewing 12 Black men and women who had served in the U.S. military, going back to World War II, had a Tuskegee Airman, a woman mm-hmm. that had served in the 688, and then Korean War, Vietnam, Iraq, and present day. So
what a topic. Wow.
Yeah. It played very well at the film mm-hmm. festivals, won Best Documentary at a number of them. And it's very happy to do that film.
And your style on filming them both was very interesting.
Well, I'm used to, so this is unusual for me. because
were behind the camera.
I'm the one being interviewed and on camera.
Yeah.
Right. And yes, my style is, I mean, I never appear on camera. Maybe a chuckle or two, but my questions don't appear on camera. My face doesn't appear on camera. It really is about, the person that I'm interviewing.
Yeah, it was a very interesting style. The first time I saw it, I'm like, wow, this isn't what I expected, but it's so cool that you're like dropping in on this conversation and you just hear the responses.
Well, so for the 90s Club, right, I try to use kind of, it looks a little bit like old-time movie cards to carry the shift in subject, and then didn't want to repeat the same exact motif for Black Uniform. So there I wound up using news footage as the transition of topics.
Yeah, super clever. And you're working on another project?
I'm on the third and probably final in this style of interviewing 12 people within a category. This one is proving to be the most challenging for me, but I'm also enjoying it quite a lot. It's called Crowning Achievement. I'm interviewing 12 former Miss Americas, going back to through the decades. So I've already filmed Bibi Shop, who's the oldest living Miss America, 1948, and I'm doing a winner from the 40s, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s to present day. Right. So I've filmed 7 of the 12 so far. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be funny because that is something that has really changed year over year.
Yes, that's right.
On the style, what's been required,
there's been
the questions that the women are asked.
Yeah, there's been a documentary or two that's focused more on the pageant and even been a bit negative or critical of the pageant. That's not my documentary. Mine is focusing on the women themselves who won the title and really about their lives and career. And I'd say the themes that I'm focusing on for the documentary, it's, beauty and aging. Miss America pageant is a competition, but there's a remarkable sisterhood that is formed amongst the winners, but then even amongst the women of their particular year. Unlike other competition shows, there really aren't any losers. The women who don't get the title, there's 52 who participate, including DC and Puerto Rico. They go on. They're still the representative of their state for the next year. So they all still have a job. You go back, and if Miss Florida didn't become Miss America, she's still Miss Florida and has that job for the next year. And then the final theme for that doc is just opportunity and accomplishment. Each of these women have achieved something that only maybe 100 other women have ever accomplished in their life. And, how did you choose how did that go and shape the rest of their lives, and what did they do with that?
What made you zoom in on that? It's such an interesting thing to choose.
Well, I think the Black Uniform, as I said, was inspired in part, by my father and my father's uniform. As a child, used to watch Miss America pageant would be one of the things that, I'd be able to stay up late each year and watch with my mother. It was always a top-rated show, along with the Super Bowl and Academy Awards. Through the years, the network audience for the show has diminished, but I don't know, I've always going back through the years. When I was 6 years old, I wrote a book, Knowing Your America. So I've always been fascinated by the states, and so I think that motivated this particular film. But as I said, this one's been a little more challenging because there's a much smaller pool of people to select from. Not always easy to find them, and then to find those who would want to participate. But
have you found someone for each decade?
As I said, I've done 7 of the 12 so far. So I've got a couple more. I think I've filmed 6 decades amongst the 7, and I have 3 more decades to cover. So,
wow, that is a project. Now, having worked an entire lifetime as an attorney, structuring deals, doing deals, on all sides, representing talents, representing, I guess you would say, the studios.
So-
How was it to take a film and then go get it, go to award ceremonies and try to get it disseminated and all that? What was that experience from your perspective?
I think it was, I had a little bit of knowledge as to that process, but much like the filming itself, I started and didn't know what I was doing. I think where the legal skills kicked in was during the editing process. As a lawyer, I'm a natural editor. And so I think what a lot of filmmakers probably linger on their films and think that they need every scene. It was easier for me to say, that's already been covered. I remember a different interviewee said it better and able to kind of cut, or we don't need the next sentence. That's just filler. And so I think from the get-go I was able to work with the editor so that it was tighter right away. Then, I don't know. I mean, I remember the first film festival that I went to with the 90s Club was the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, which is a very well-regarded festival. And it takes place about a week or a month or so before the Oscar ceremony. And so they have a lot of events with high-level people that attend that festival and that. So it was a great honor to be there. And I couldn't believe a movie that I did, my first film is at this film festival and is getting to play for an audience. And then, went on to play in 20-some festivals and, then to find out at a couple of them, I won the prize for Best Documentary.
Cool.
Yeah, super cool. Super cool. Never expected that, type of, that kind of honor. And then when it happens again, then it does build up a little bit of expectation
and pressure.
And then you get noticed, you've not been accepted for a festival or you've been rejected. And it's like, what? I won the last one. This place doesn't even want to include my film. But, those festivals are, carefully curated. I think people are trying to, achieve different tones. And there's so much competition, so many great films out there when you go to the festival. It's easy to understand why you might not be accepted. Yeah.
You have dealt with competition your whole life. Entertainment is an area that...
I always say law is my sport.
And entertainment law, there's a lot of people who want to work in that field, yet you are a force of nature in it, highly recognized by your peers and clients on all sides. How did you become this gladiator in this field? What would you say is your...
I think endurance.
Well, there's a lot to be said for endurance.
I originally went to law school I went to Georgetown. I wanted to pursue a career in international trade. I didn't even really know what that was, but I know I liked the world and I liked the word international. So I signed up and went to Georgetown. And for the first year, I worked at the French embassy. I took trade classes. Even international trade was competitive to get into that area. It sounds very glamorous and that. And during a summer position, I worked with a practice group that did that type of work. And it wasn't quite what I expected. It was a lot of document review. And those who did travel would go to some interesting places like Thailand or Brazil to evaluate anti-dumping or counterfeiting type of cases. But I just heard that they stayed in warehouses reviewing boxes. And a lot of it was economics and evaluating those type of things. That at that same time, my second year of law school, I took the only entertainment course that was available at Georgetown, taught by really a great professor who's passed away, Professor Gordon. And he had a lot of speakers come in and speak to the class about their careers, which all sounded fascinating. It was the same class that you had to write a seminar paper for. And I chose to write about the Twilight Zone movie, which had Vic Morrow and two young children who were all
Oh,
killed
I
on this
remember.
set of The Twilight Zone when a helicopter accident
Right.
happened. So I wrote about a comparison piece between California law and New York law about engaging minors in production. So the Coogan laws that protect the money that is earned by children and establishment of trust accounts, the work hours, and schooling requirements and that. And it got published out in California, so it was the late 80s. There was a lot of competition for talent coming out of law school, and I was able to turn one of my offers into an opportunity to split my time doing entertainment litigation and entertainment transactional work. So I was fortunate to be able to start right into entertainment.
Did you find you had a preference over
Immediately
transaction versus litigation?
Transactional, yes.
Do those transactions
I
often
say,
end up litigational?
I think,
nice that you have both.
I think the litigators would wish that the deals would turn into more litigation, but I mean, my goal is to make sure that
doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. Yeah.
Well,
I like the pace and the movement of the transactional work, as opposed to, litigation can drag out for years. I mean, it may take a decade for a movie to get launched from when you started working on it, but the components of it, of attaching a writer or attaching a director, those things happen relatively quickly.
So when you're doing transactional work in entertainment, it could be, can you walk us through what that might look like?
Since the bulk of my work tends to be, on behalf of a streamer, a studio, a network. So typically they have in-house lawyers and business affairs executives who, along with the production executives, first the production executives or the creatives will select the cast that they want. Then someone in business affairs will go out and try to strike the deal with that particular actor, director. And for a lot of the situations, I don't get involved until that deal's been cut, and then it comes to me for papering and negotiating out on the long form. When I've worked on independent films or for international production companies, then I play the role of business affairs as well, and I will reach out and negotiate with the agents on behalf of the company and say, well, we would like Nicole Kidman for this movie, and they'll tell you this is what her last quote was that she received. And we'll say, ooh, that's that's the same as the budget of this little independent film. Would she do it for way, way less? And then when somebody works for a lot less compensation than they would ordinarily get, or their quote, you have to find incentives and ways where in the success of the film, they can continue to participate in its success, whether that's bonuses based on the box office of the movie, either domestically or worldwide, or a participation in the you'd like to say the back end, the participation once the investors have recouped. And then there may be, with the streamers, that may be depending on how well the production is doing on the streaming service, there might be another bonus, or if it gets an Academy Award or Golden Globe nomination, there could be some additional bonuses there. So,
oh my gosh, your answer triggered so many questions. I'm trying to track them all in my mind. One is, you kind of brought me around to the opening question of this. How would you define who holds the power in Hollywood? How is that power shift based on someone's career along the way? Like, is it the studio, or does an actor, get to a level where they have more power than the studio? Like, how would you define that?
I think, and again, even though I'm most typically not on the talent side, I'd say the talent tends to have more leverage generally. And that, it's surprising. It may not even be somebody who is a A-level star. I think once a director and a casting director and the actual director of the film and the creative at the studio or the streamer has somebody in mind for a role, unless they're really so far out of the parameters in terms of, the budget for the movie, people are really set on that person, even if it's the sixth lead. It's
Right.
it's going to be Brad Pitt's neighbor in the movie. Once people start envisioning who that is, they want that person.
Interesting.
Yes, there could be 6, 12 other people that could be Brad Pitt's neighbor in the movie, but everybody's kind of set on that person. So again, unless they really are expecting twice as much as is budgeted for that particular role, I think
How
that's
closed
who everybody
or
wants.
open do you think that decision-making process is? Like, let's say if someone's a new talent and they're trying to make their way in, but they haven't been seen in that many things.
So, yeah, I suppose, those folks don't have a tremendous amount of leverage in terms of maybe negotiating for some additional perks or a significant back-end participation, if at all. I think that's part of a builds over the course of their career. You may be an actor and have zero participation, and then after a few roles, maybe you can get 2.5% of net profits. Very, very, very unlikely you will ever see anything based on that. But then the next one, you're getting 5% of net profits, and then you build this over the course of the career to 10% of net profits. Oh, now it's not net profits. It's a bit sooner in the waterfall. It's adjusted gross proceeds.
Isn't that the joke in the business? The net profits, because there's all the expenses that get.
Well, I think net profits is a formula. It's not necessarily tied to actual account. I think when people try to think of it in terms of accounting principles that would apply to a different business, it doesn't seem to make sense. But if you look at it more as a formula, the studio is going to take a distribution fee. They're going to take their distribution expenses and marketing, and there's some overhead on that marketing, and then there's interest because this money's been out of pocket for quite some time, and then they need to recoup all of the other third-party expenses for all the others, and so it does take quite a long time to get to the notion of net profits. People see the big numbers at the box office that a movie made $1 billion, but to get to that $1 billion, there's the significant cost of the movie. As much as it costs to make a movie, it usually costs that much to market the movie as well.
You've seen so many changes over your career, and those changes seem to be accelerating. Like just the shift from, the length of time movies went to a box office to the whole streaming industry now. What are your observations with that and how this is all shifting and changing?
Yeah, the pandemic expedited things there too, right? Because there weren't theaters to go to, and there were certain movies that were already made and just sitting on the shelf, and people at home had an appetite for things. So certain movies shifted and went immediately to streaming or to electronic sell-through. You could buy the movie instead of going to the to the movie. The box office has taken some time to kind of recover from that, and some could say it's not quite recovered. But certain films are having massive success, and people only want to see them in a movie theater. I don't see that going away. But the window from when something is in a theater to when it's available, on a pay-per-view type of basis is pretty short.
Right.
Nowadays, yeah.
How does it work when things like, Superman? I grew up on Superman, and obviously that was a different Clark Kent than the 10 we've seen. How does it work when a movie revives a theme and a character like that?
There's a couple of different ways to go. Some are very reverential, right, and trying to get to the same place. And some of the reboots go a completely different direction, right? I mean,
Like what Frank Miller worked on with Batman and the Dark Knight,
Yeah, either in terms of tone, right? Something in terms of tone shifts completely, or a male protagonist becomes a female in this one. I grew up watching One Day at a Time, a Norman Lear series years ago, and then about 5 years ago, it kind of relaunched. Again, still Norman Lear was still alive, and it was launched with a Cuban American family portraying the family. So it was a different take on it entirely.
It's funny with things like that. You just raised an interesting thought. If it's a family situation and the theme is one day at a time, you could imagine a Cuban family versus a white Caucasian family, let's say like me, although that's a pretty broad generalization for a white Caucasian, or anything. You could say each family has a different structure. The one that always blows me away is, let's take James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't they call the next character 008 or 009? Like taking James Bond and changing who was James Bond, which was a guy in a period of time when sexiness was just sexiness and he got the woman and he, whatever. It's kind of like we knew that was his character. That was how he was done. To modify James Bond as a different character, I'm like, it's just not James Bond anymore. Call him somebody else. Keep the theme. Let him keep working for the same organization, but modernize the theme. What do you think about that? It's an interesting trend.
Well, I am working with Amazon MGM on, the Bond project.
Oh, are you?
Everything is, very, very confidential, but I think there's a tremendous amount of excitement about where Bond will be going. I mean, they announced the director for the next Bond film, Denis Villeneuve, who had done the Dune films,
right?
And so I think the buzz out there in terms of that's who the next director is going to be. That's going to be very cool. And I have no idea who the new Bond will be, so it'll be But I think it's exciting to see where it'll go.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, because kind of like when Daniel Craig died, I'm like, okay, James, no more James Bond. It's going to be some other number now, but the same kind of theme. Yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see how that unfolds. Oh. I didn't realize you were working on that. Yeah. Didn't want to put you on the spot there, Robert.
Well, fortunately, I don't know any of the secrets yet, so...
You besides the pandemic having people stay at home, that huge shift with big names moving to not just a TV show, but these series, Billy Bob Thornton and Landman, or, any of the series.
Nicole Kidman in everything.
Exactly. It's like all of a sudden Helen Mirren in... from all the things she did in the Yellowstone series to then doing Mobland, and
and you see Harrison Ford and Shrinking, and also in the Yellowstone universe, and the money is quite good.
That's what I was wondering. What's that money like compared to doing a film, or what's causing that huge attraction?
Well, I think there's fewer feature films being made. And so there are, fewer opportunities there. A lot of the films that, that are being made fall into the category of being a franchise. So if you weren't in the first or the second, you're not going to get in the third or the fourth, maybe except as an ancillary new character and that. So, the pool of opportunities to work in, theatrical motion pictures is smaller. There's still indie films out there, but, they don't pay very well at all. And the trouble with doing an indie film is you're not sure it's ever going to find distribution.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great films that play Sundance, Tribeca, and audiences like them, but a major studio won't pick them up, or a small independent distributor won't pick them up, in part because as we talked about before, it's very expensive to market a film.
Mm-hmm.
And so unless it's got a built-in audience like Barbie,
Right.
Barbie's an original film.
Mm-hmm.
There'd never been a Barbie movie before, but everybody knows Barbie.
Right.
There will be a Hot Wheels movie.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, knows Hot Wheels. So you've got some built-in pre-existing IP there that people can focus on. But trying to launch a completely unknown title, sell the story, even if it's got some recognizable cast, it has to break through all that other noise and competition for people's eyeballs.
What does that distribution look like now? Like if you create an independent film today, are you hoping to get into a theater? Do you need to get into a theater? Do you need to then get to festivals or things like that? Or are people hoping they can go straight to a streaming service? Like, what's that process like now? How has it changed?
Some producers,
or how is it the same? Because I don't even know what it was.
There's two routes to go.
Mm-hmm.
Some will try to shop their package before the film is made. Take it to the natural buying sources for that film.
Who would be natural buying sources? I don't know.
It would depend on the budget of the film. But, you might think, I'm going to take that to Amazon, or I'm going to take that to Netflix. Streamers have bought so much over the past few years. But if they happen to pass on it, it's not going to be picked up by Disney or Paramount. Again, they've got their own slate. They'll keep their eyes open for some gems, but there's not many slots there. But you still want to make your movie.
Right.
Maybe adjust the budget. You find somebody who supports it. You find the financing. You pre-sell some certain territories around the world, and you make your movie. Now you have to still sell it. It was the movie that everyone passed on at the script stage, but now there's something for them to see. And hopefully some festival recognition will bolster the likelihood that it'll be sold. People see it. And I think it's everybody's initial dream and goal who's involved with the film that it goes to theaters. Mm-hmm. Although that may not necessarily be the most profitable route. Again, goes to theaters right away. It's going to take a while to recoup the money that they advanced for the movie. Then they've got to recoup all that marketing. Another way to do it is to kind of create some sort of word of mouth, some sort of smaller marketing campaign, make it available, on a pay-per-view or electronic sell-through basis. If it can find that audience where people will then purchase it, and more of the money will go more immediately back to the financiers and the producers.
When you were talking, I wonder, I go back to 2003, where everyone, before that, 2000, where everyone I would meet would say, well, I have a .com company and Coca-Cola is going to be my sponsor, or Pepsi's going to be my sponsor. Everyone had the biggest companies in the world were going to sponsor their idea. And, these companies were getting funded, and it was crazy. And it led to the .com bust in 2003. But when I think of movies now, what is the competition? Are more people making movies because there are so many more streamers and outlets and cable channels? How's that balanced these days? Is there enough content for the outlets, or is there too much content for the outlets in what you've observed?
There's the past few years, there was a big content boom. And, new platforms were launching. They all needed content. Maybe they didn't yet have their own internal development slates ready. There was interruption from the strikes, the pandemic. So they were in a buying mode. I think a couple things happened. Wall Street really focused in on the profitability of these streaming services, whether it was an independent one or one related to a studio. And, it became important. Are they increasing their subscribers? Are the shows, is there an afterlife for the show? because a lot of times the streamers weren't selling their shows afterward to third parties.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that is happening now. So I think the streamers have all taken a look at things and want their shows to have a smarter budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's been a tightening up on the amount that's being ordered at the moment. But at the same time, it seems the world is huge. There are a lot of very, very wealthy people out there who want to perhaps get into film, be an executive producer on something, or have a passion about a particular cause or theme.
Interesting.
And so maybe it's something that they want to support, something that will promote the environment. Or there's seems to be a number of people who will want to invest in films that cater to a religious audience. Something that's close or personal to them. It's if you could have a list of the billionaires or the the mega millionaires, and they all who do I go to that would invest in this film, and doesn't particularly care if it makes money or not. It'd be great to have that list, but so I think over time, you'll see people find these people through friends of friends, and for smaller independent productions, if it's not a particularly large budget, people have been very successful at crowdfunding. If they have a little bit of history, they're able to film something that looks like a trailer to get people excited, and go out there, and if they have a lot of friends and family, and then kind of can build some buzz from there. Maybe if they can do their movie for $100,000, $200,000.
Are those like Reg A's of some form? A crowdfunding for a movie? How is that? Just a crowdfunding where you get tickets when it comes out, or a T-shirt?
Yes, something like that, or information flow, or ultimately maybe refunded if the movie makes a particular level. But they're not going through an SCC Blue Sky process or anything like that. So it is it is a high risk investment.
But you get to say you helped produce a film.
That's right. People like that.
It's kind of like owning a boat, a vine.
And you could set up different tiers. I mean, I would, I'll take your $100. I'll take your $500. Somebody gives me $5,000. Okay, they're an associate producer, and can buy your way into that. Yeah.
Another shift you've been seeing, the last writers and actors strikes were heavily surrounded with AI. What are you seeing from your seat in the different sides of how everyone's perceiving the impact of AI on the film industry? Or entertainment in general.
I think lawyers, we need a union to AI is coming. Well, for
everything.
For
I can't believe it. I've seen the difference in PR. I've seen the difference in basically every industry.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's going to replace how somebody thinks. That's, and their personality that they bring to whatever the situation is.
Right. But I think rather than being afraid of it coming, it is coming.
Yeah, the genie's out of that bottle.
Better is to find ways to embrace it, to make whatever you're doing, kind of, more efficient. And for law, and we'll talk a little bit about those other areas too, but for law, instead of needing someone to take a box of documents and go research through that, which would take 3-4 days to read every line, you can get that scanned in. It'll kick out a summary almost instantaneously. Now that summary it
needs to get reviewed.
Is not something that at this point I would ask anybody to officially rely on. But instead of needing that 4 days to go through that box, you now have a summary and a roadmap of exactly where to go, where you want to see okay, now I'm going to look at this language. I'm going to ask it some specific questions and prompts, and becoming more sophisticated in terms of how to use it and to prompt it so it is more valuable to
Right.
you. I think, and the Actors Guild focused very much on AI in terms of digital replicas, protecting actors' jobs, also for crowd scenes, that's been in place for quite some time, where there were, computer generated crowds, preserving ways where your performance in one particular movie can then not be used in a next one without there being some additional compensation coming back to the, to the actor. I mean, the concern with writers and AI, from the studios, there's often a clause in the writer contract that says, you writer represented more to me that you did not use AI in connection with creating
Interesting.
this. Because for the moment, and the copyright,
it's two-way street.
The copyright law is on, it hasn't been determined as of yet. AI's contribution is not copyright protectable. It takes a human to create a copyright. So if you're going to spend $100 million to make a movie and it's based on something that AI created and you don't have copyright protection in it, well, then there's no ability to enforce others from infringing upon that or taking that. So there is value, tremendous value, in having an original creation.
That is a really fascinating concept. It reminds years, for quite a while, I worked with Avalon Ventures. And one of the partners, Rich Levendorf, always used to say, technology precedes the law. There'll be things that technology will do that it'll find ways to do things, or something will happen, and then the law will have to catch up to figure out how are we going to regulate this, or what are we going to say.
In entertainment, surprisingly, it was oftentimes the porn industry that was pushing the envelope, whether it was
absolutely
First Amendment or other, DVDs, video
1-800
cassettes.
numbers.
Yes.
That's where it started. My first 1-800 books, when I'm like, I want to learn about how to have a, or, a 1-900 number. I'm like, every example was the porn industry. I'm like, well.
They're on the cutting edge of a lot of that. We'll see where it goes, but I think, it's best if you kind of not push it aside, but kind of embrace, how can this help me in my practice? But again, I have a lot of young lawyers on my team, and we do talk kind of weekly about, the coming of AI and how it can save tremendous amount of billable hours, which could mean a reduction in workforce over time, or fewer opportunities for new lawyers to come in. So I want each of them now thinking about, what is my value add? How am I different or better than AI? And certainly it's having that personal connection. And then it's perhaps, we've never, as a law firm, led with, we're the broker for you. We're your lawyer. We're going to take care of the paperwork. Of course, we've made introductions on different deals, like, somebody's looking for this. You should talk to them. I heard this person, might want something like your project. Go have a conversation. But I think stepping that up, being, a gateway or an access to other companies and to other people will become more important. It's something, that AI wouldn't be doing for you, but through your own relationships and, being able to vouch for your clients will become valuable. So establishing those personal connections with decision makers, I think, is, on top of the legal skills, something that'll be necessary for
So can I
do.
kind of put you on the spot? I want to give you a chance to brag about yourself in a way, because if let's say your team is sitting around you and you said, listen, team, we want to keep being the top entertainment team in Hollywood, which basically means the world if you're working in entertainment, in my opinion. Okay?
Agree. Yeah.
So if we want to keep being the top entertainment group in the world, you have to know your value add. What's Robert Darwell's value add? There's a reason you get all these accolades from the industry, from your peers, from people who work in entertainment at the highest levels. So I want to give you a bragging rights right now, and I don't want you to be humble. What would you say to your team?
Oh,
pretend we're talking.
So
to your team.
this isn't me being humble.
Okay,
but I think. Okay,
I could come up with a bunch and tell you what
I think one of
you would know more.
My greatest strengths over the years is that I've been really good at selecting people to work with me. And it's probably the one thing that I'm most proud of, too. Even people that have left me through the years have gone on to achieve such great success. Been heads of legal departments at the studios, work at other firms, and became partner and top attorneys at other places. And the current team probably has been with me the longest and the most consistent. I think through the pandemic, we got very close. I think it was the first time we started, bi-weekly or twice a week meetings and really getting to know each other so that friends are there. So I do feel like I have a particular eye for hiring people. Right now,
that's huge.
On the team, we're about 26 on my individual team. We cover 12 languages.
Oh my gosh.
So I always, at one time I had a requirement that you had to have a second language in order to work on my team, mostly because it cut the resume stack down. But, that's opened up a tremendous amount of business for us throughout Latin America.
Yes.
2 people on the team are from Colombia. One is from Brazil. A woman that most recently joined was practicing at a top firm in Beirut. I think the attorney I hired before that was from China and then received his LLM at UCLA.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
what an interesting way of thinking and creating a collective of talent.
Yeah, I think that has helped us kind of on a global market. Yeah. We don't always have to send something out to somebody else because it's in French and someone there on the team can read it or look at it in Italian in real time. And so we don't lose that. Right. Or, I don't know, recently there was around the holiday time last year, a Polish music company came in and they were looking for lawyers in LA and they had been recommended to me. Well, one of the longtime assistants in the office, who's not a practicing attorney, but she's originally from Poland. I had her come in and sit in the meeting and just, speak with them and join. And, they thought, oh, are you going to do the work? And she's like, oh, no, I'm not a lawyer. I think, that helped establish those connections. I think it's also benefited me personally to work with such a kind of motivated entrepreneurial team because it keeps me energized, kind of, it's great to see people learn around you. I definitely learn from them every day, whether it's something new on the system, or kind of the different AI platforms that we are using. I could sit in a lecture from, some IT person at the firm, or I can get the practical knowledge of it by working with one of the people on my team who is using it. It's like, great. So I don't know. I think having that eye and going with my instinct on people. A lot of people look terrific on paper, great law school, good college, and I don't know, even before it was a thing, I always liked the 360 interview. I'd like when they would get to me, I'd say, oh, let's walk out and get a yogurt. Or it used to be when there were record stores, let's go to the record store, and you get them out of the office and talk about what was the last concert you went to, where did you travel last? the non-legal questions. And you'd start to get a sense of their personality and how it would be like to actually work with them on a day in and day out basis. Immediately, even if somebody's great, if they have something negative to say about their current employer, that like it's extremely unlikely I would ever go further in the interview process with that person.
What would that trigger in you?
I think they're going to come here and it will be the same thing or even worse, in terms of, we work very hard, quirky personality. I don't want to hear them speak ill of, their current colleagues or their current supervisor. It's just the wrong messaging for an interview.
It's interesting. Unfortunately, we're getting tight on time, but you kind of brought me full circle to your daily server Instagram account that you keep, because what I love about that is it really shows that you honor people in an interesting way, which if I was going to describe you, I would that would be one of the things I would say to, if I was Robert Darwell addressing my team about your value add, I'd say, listen, you know the law, you've got multiple languages, bring those people skills that you excel at. I mean, that's just an exceptional quality that it's just exceptional.
Well, I think
really have that.
It's the service component too. I mean, law is a profession, but you have to deliver on this service. And I mean, that does sometimes come with tremendous sacrifice. Everybody wants things now.
Yesterday.
Yeah, you're right. It's over.
Now is late.
Yes, it's overdue from the minute that it's been given to you. And I know the first question when I give somebody an assignment is, when is, what's the due date? It's like, oh my God. It's like, the due date. And if we ask the client, I mean, it's always ASAP, there are some really great clients who will say, I don't need this for a week. And that's good.
But my weeks are 4 days.
That's right. It's keeping clients informed even when there is no progress. A lot of times we're following up with the other side. Show them that you've been following up.
Yeah.
Make them feel that you are taking care of them. You have to take ownership of your project. Think about not just what they've given you, but what they haven't given you or told you, not to try to generate additional work in that, but just to take care of them. Hey, you asked me to do this contract, and there's a reference to something else. Is that documented? Or that person's bringing on an assistant? Do you have a piece of paper with that person? Keep asking the questions, get to know the project, and encourage everybody to not only go to lunch with your client, but go to a lunch with opposing counsel. Get to know them. You're going to see them again. That'll increase efficiencies, hopefully in negotiations down the road, to know that person, develop that level of trust.
Right.
Entertainment law is, there's a number of people who have kind of questionable reputations, make sure you're not one of them. Make sure that you can be counted on and, what you're saying is accurate and true. And if you don't know the answer, say you don't know the answer.
I was just going to ask you in closing statement, what would be your advice? And it's kind of tough to top that one. If you don't know the answer, say you don't know the answer.
Well,
what else would you say to someone?
On that, if we don't know the answer, I take a quick pause and say, you know what? We'll get back to you after lunch. The phone's ringing. I'll be back to you in 2 hours. And then I make sure I go and learn that answer right during that period of time so that I can call back. And so I do rarely say I don't know the answer. It'll be more like, I need to get back to you, and then get back to them super quickly with the actual answer. Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for joining me. This went too fast like I knew it would.
Well, you made it very easy. Nice talking with you, and thank you for the great questions.
Thank you. I have been speaking with Robert Darwell, who you can find at Sheppard Mullin. I highly recommend you do check him out. His info for the firm, his bio will be below. And it's such a pleasure speaking with you. You're so knowledgeable. You're so personable. Thank you, Robert.
Okay. Thank you, Diane.
I'm Dian Griesel. This has been the Silver Disobedience Perception Dynamics podcast, and we're in iconic Manhattan Center. We're in TV2 right now. It's a really cool place. A lot of great things happened here, and I'm grateful that they let me happen here along with Robert. Thank you.
All right.
Subscribe.